Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is a tarot reading for Cancer, Ascendant, Sun, or Moon for the month of February 2019. What more to say before I get started? Just that this is, again, this is a spread that I've created for the tarot readings for this month, and you can check out the video I have on that at the beginning of this playlist if you want to know more. I'm going to come over here to the card representing you, the Son of Cups. And it's sandwiched in between two very powerful major arcana, the Chariot and the Sun. And so this tells me that this coming month here in a very empowered place where you're probably going to be easily able to follow your dreams and inspirations, and there's going to be a lot of mobility. If you've been stuck in a rut, I think that this is a month where you'll probably have the ability to get out of that rut, assuming that you actually want to. Not all of us want to all the time, which is quite often why we stay in unsupportive, emotionally destitute situations, But it's looking pretty prominent for you here in terms of just power and mobility. You've on some level you're in a place where you're responsible, you're accepting your destiny, you're accepting the things you need to do, and you're moving toward a very great and long-term goal, perhaps initiating that goal. I'm not really sure, but that's kind of where you're headed. That's kind of where you're following, and you're going to be doing it in again the sun. Well, the son of cups, or the sun cards, they're like the knights in other tarot decks. So this is a very this is a very confident card to get. It's a card that's excellent for mobility. So we kind of have that juxtaposition here of the Chariot with a knight card, and the sun here is these features these doves, so it's also about mobility. And of course, in the original like Rider-Waite deck, at least there's a white horse in the sun card. So we do have a lot of empowerment and nobility in general, or sorry, nobility. Yes, nobility, but the word I was originally looking for was empowerment and I don't know, something about movability. No, that's not quite the word, but mobility. There we go. Nobility, mobility. Okay. Those two words kind of have an interesting relationship. Actually, now that I say them, it's like mobility and nobility, right? I mean, nobility is usually not no ability, but it's like, being upright and forthright and things like that. But mobility is almost like, it almost reminds me of like more or mo, like how people kind of do a slang thing for more, like I want mo, I want mo with that. So I don't know, just kind of funny little tongue twister that happened there. So anyway, moving on to these three cards here: past, present, and future. What's weighing on you from the past, where you are, in the month, like basically where you are, and then what you're kind of headed towards, or what's sort of drawing you towards the future. This card has come up quite a bit in the tarot spreads I'm doing for this month, oddly enough. And I think the message of it is it does have a lot to do with like not only being responsible and getting our shit together, but also like just a lot of pressure, so to speak, from a father figure, or like a desire to like rise high in the world and be really successful and powerful and that kind of a thing. What I see here is like there was some sort of crisis, some sort of release of power in the past for you. Something happened. I don't think things necessarily fell apart, but whatever happened, whatever was called down, right? You, on some level, you got what you asked for, is what this is. Like whether it was a magical ritual, which is what this is reminding me of, like you did some powerful magical ritual and summoned some energies, or you just worked really hard and thought really hard about something and it actually manifested, but for some reason you're fleeing from that. It's almost like you got scared, you know? And traditionally, of course, the Lover's card really has nothing to do with that, but the images on these cards is really the most important thing in my experience. So I think it's interesting that there's this theme that you're fleeing from some descent of power, and you're fleeing into kind of a dysfunctional comfort zone of working or something like that. Almost like you're trying to ignore this powerful awakening of energies, whatever it is, inspiration, or the opportunity for ultimate success, not sex, sorry. Or maybe it is the opportunity for ultimate sex. I don't know. That could, nothing's a coincidence. So the fact that slipped out of my mouth when I meant to say success, right, could mean something for some of you watching this. But I'll leave that for you to ponder. Anyway, you're fleeing some ultimate success or, again, power, and you're going into a sort of something maybe more comfortable, but not really necessarily like your nature. It's almost like, see, the Lovers is really a card about, it's not only about like love and romance and attraction. It's really about, on a deeper level, it's about like passion and doing something we love, right? And passion is just kind of this principle of being enamored and compelled almost in whatever it is we're doing, feeling like enamored by it, like playing music passionately, cooking passionately, speaking passionately. Like these are all things where we're putting some deeper energy into it, kind of a thing. So on some level, you are it's almost like you're trying to convince yourself that you love just a lot of hard work and just kind of a business ethic, a business life, a sort of just a life that is like all work and no play. You're trying to convince yourself that that's what you really love, when in fact it's probably this that you really love, whatever the heck this is, this kind of dance with the forces of chaos sort of thing, this abundance of creative energy that allows you to do anything. On the other hand, this could refer to something collapsing, something not quite working out, and then a transition to find something else that you love, but you feel like you have to deal with all these like financial and social responsibilities that may be holding you back from doing what you love and that kind of thing. On some level, though, this is an 8, and 8s do always deal with the end of kind of a series of experiences or work. 8 is like the end of karma in a sense. It's perfection as well, perfection of whatever was being constructed. And then 9, going to 9 is dissolution, and then 10 is like mastery and or the beginning of a new cycle, or a pause, so to speak, before the beginning of a new cycle. So 8 is really, in a sense, 8 is like the proper end. And I think this is why, in the I Ching, there are 8 there are 8 hexagrams. Yeah, instead of 9 or 10, right? There are really 8. So 8 is the perfection of the world, matter, right? Because it's 4 and 4. So the earthly and the heavenly, right? Earthly 4, heavenly 4, and so on. The 4 pillars that connect heaven and earth, right? And sort of create this ultimate stability or perfection, right? So having reached that on some level, you're now ready to move into a new place in life, but you have to deal with this kind of whatever this is, this kind of blockage, or it's like, you have to go and get like the loan approved, and it's going to be, you feel like it's going to be a major bitch to get the loan approved if you were buying a house, let's say, or something like that. It's these kinds of things. You got to fix up your house before you can sell it, or there's just a lot of work to do, and it feels kind of stifling. I mean, fortunately, you do have the power to do it. But I think what's interesting too is that the sun came out reversed here, as did the future card, the Father of Pentacles. So on some level, and even this card, how to deal with the future, right? The advice on how to deal with the future came out reversed. And so I think that this is all kind of pointing to more of the perception that these things are really stifling rather than what they really are. They're not necessarily stifling. You're just seeing them as being really stifling, if that makes sense, right? You're perhaps putting your hopes and dreams, your ultimate goals here with this sun card reverse, like in the far future. Like, well, I have to overcome all these obstacles, you know? I have to do that. Otherwise nothing's going to happen. And, oh, I'm never going to get this. I'm never going to realize like my ultimate potential kind of a thing. And I would say if that is true for you, if you're watching this, right, and you feel like, oh yeah, that's definitely me, right, you got to find a way to not have such a shitty negative attitude about it, because God knows I've done the same thing. I'm sure we've all done the same thing at some point or another. It's like, oh my God, I have all this stuff to do and it sucks and I really don't want to do it. But, you know, when you start actually doing it and you're just like, okay, finally, you're like, I'm going to just get this done. You realize, wow, why did I think this was overwhelming? It really wasn't, you know? And that's kind of the mystery of the mind, right? The mind makes things more difficult when it doesn't like them or doesn't want to do them or enjoy them or so on, or we tell ourselves that, or our mind tells us that, or whatever, right? But actually just doing it is going to be a lot more, it's going to be a lot easier to get it done and that sort of a thing. I also think it's interesting that you have the 6 here and then the 7 with the Chariot, right? So it's almost like this is actually where you're trying to get. The lovers are trying to get to the Chariot in a sense, right? I wouldn't normally say this for this spread, but I think because 6 to 7, right, that's what it reminds me of. And so, yeah, in that sense, right, there are some sort of perceived obstacles before you can sort of be the person you imagine yourself to be fully, right? But I think you're a lot closer than you perhaps believe. You know, I really think it's just a matter of, you know, they both have a pentacle here, and of course the Chariot, it's not a earthy card, but it's a worldly card in the sense of like completing our duty in the world, doing our duty to the world, which is our dharma basically, which is a spiritual thing. It's not antithetical to spirituality. But, you know, setting your finances aright, so to speak, is going to allow you to definitely move forward much faster and that sort of a thing. Something I didn't mention is you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 major arcanum cards. So this month for you could be like a pretty powerful period of time for, you know, again, getting things done, moving forward in life and so on. I think these are the most major arcanum cards I've seen so far in this series. But I haven't done all the spreads yet, so we'll see if any other spreads have a lot of major arcana. But usually when there's a lot of major arcana, there's either a lot of change and transition going on, or there's just like a tremendous amount at stake is kind of the idea. Don't let that freak you out, but it's just kind of like this could be a more intense month for you is all it means. Okay, so it's just good to know that not every month is going to be like that. Not every year is going to be like that. Not even every like 5, 10, 20 years is going to be like that, right? When we get down to that level too. Now, in the past, right, if we look at the 2 card here, reverse the 2 of Cups, right? I see this as like something was unfulfilling. So it had to end, or it had to change, or it had to evolve, so to speak. Something was really unfulfilling, perhaps a romance, or just perhaps your life in general, what you were chasing after was just not quite fulfilling you, if that makes sense. Underneath the present card, we get the Mother of Swords, which is curious because it's almost like there is a lot of harsh judgment going on, like negative self-talk and things like that. Can I really do what I love? Is this really okay for me to do? Perhaps you're also running from some sort of safety net or security net. It's almost like, it could almost be like breaking with a religion or a cult or a belief system, or even running away literally from a mother or an older woman figure. Somebody, very powerful and perhaps even very dangerous as well. Um, this could also be like the legal system, the courts. It's kind of speaking to me on that level, at least. But this is another thing that, is kind of preventing you perhaps from just getting to this area, right? To the chariot and eventually to the sun. It's kind of this sense of wanting to just move forward and do what you love, but being insecure, being unwilling to compromise maybe, or just having a lot of negativity. And again, this can manifest as literal people, as literal things, or it could just be your own internal dialogue. And then this is so curious, the Emperor reversed. I love this Emperor card. It's just a big tree. But yeah, the Emperor reversed is the advice on how to deal with the future. And on some level, this means it's better to give up some of your belongings and power and position. It's best to sacrifice some of those things, sacrifice the things that are not really important. Deal with reality as well, because it's pointing down, instead of pointing up. Deal more with reality right now than with like the highest spiritual ideal that you have, right? And this is supported too by the fact that the Son of Cups is facing the sun rather than the chariot, right? The Emperor with the chariot are going to be more practical in a sense. Like more about, this is what I have to do, and I don't necessarily want to do it, but it's just the right thing to do, and so it needs to get done, right? And so in that sense, disregarding that this is reversed, right? It's kind of like put your affairs in order and do what needs to be done, right? Rather than get too wrapped up in becoming what needs to be done, if that makes sense. So like if you were quitting a job, okay, you're going to have to do some things to quit that job, right? You're going to have to, maybe you have a new job lined up and stuff, but you put in your 2 weeks, right? There are some things you're going to have to do to kind of like close out that work experience in a positive and auspicious way, and so on, right? So yes, you do those things, right? Even if they're a pain in the ass, but you don't become those things, right? The Emperor, the power of the Emperor, and the reason the Emperor is more powerful and more spiritual even than, though it's not a profoundly spiritual card, but it's still more powerful and spiritual than the King cards or the Father cards here, is because the Emperor does what needs to be done without becoming the things that he has to take care of, right? That's the ultimate kind of level of the Emperor card, right? So being in the world but not of them, and so on. And the Emperor is completely responsible. The wise Emperor, right, is basically egoless. He's Plato's philosopher king, if for those of you who have read The Republic, right? So the Emperor, as an advice card here, is basically like, yeah, get things in order, do what needs to be done, be firm, do them swiftly, but don't become those things. Don't let yourself become those things, right? This card is becoming the responsibilities, is being weighed down by them. The Emperor card, though, is just very impersonal, saying, no, I just have to deal with this and get it out of the way, right? And just do it because it needs to be done. And there's no other way around it. So that's pretty cool, I think. And then finally, the Magician card at the top here is going to represent sort of the summation of everything, and it also gives us some more advice. So the Magician, to me, is saying that there's a lot on your plate this month. There's several different paths you can take. There's several different ways you can approach things. But just as the Magician has the 4 elements, right, and the Emperor is 4, it again harkens back to putting your affairs in order, right, organizing things and making reality work for you, work in your favor, right, by your thoughts, words, and deeds, rather than just sort of being controlled and manipulated by it, right? This is, in a sense, this is the beginning of something new, which is the magician, number one, the beginning of something new. And so all of the potentials are there. You're approaching a situation in which you can combine things and do things in a new way, right? You can play a bit more. Magician and lovers, right? These two cards come together. We want to play. But yeah, you would do well to, again, put your affairs in order to just organize things, right? Like this a good way to do this is to organize the things in your home, clean out your house, get rid of things that are no longer serving you. Organize stuff on your computer. Just anything you can do to just like create order in your life, create a sense of order, right? And then as you get especially if you're getting rid of things, right? As you get rid of things, you consider this like an early spring cleaning. But as you get rid of things, you'll start to see things in a more pure form and shape. You'll find things that you had that you forgot about, that you'd always wanted to experiment with, but you just never had the time, right? And that's also what the magician is about. It's playful, right? So it's like it's kind of like if you have a ton of books, right? And you get rid of most of them, and then you discover, oh wow, here's this book that I had on learning how to sew or something like that. Like a really great book somebody gave me years ago. I always wanted to look at it and I never got to, right? So you're getting back to like a more pure level of enjoyment and play and exploration in that kind of example, right? The same could be said for like cooking or any area of life, but you're probably not going to find those things if you don't do some organizing and perhaps some early spring cleaning. So I hope that makes sense. I hope this was helpful. I think that does it for this reading. Please hit like, subscribe, and share, and check out my website if you want, a full individualized reading. Okay, guys. So have a great February.